Thank you very much, Roberta. And as you've just heard, my name's Gareth Lamberton. I'm a farmer from County Donegal. So a wee picture of my fallow here, some of our cows. You can see Lough Swilly just about in the background there, and our nice scenery up in Donegal. So we're predominantly a dairy farm, and we also have a small beef, sheep and tillage enterprise along with that. So this last 2 years, I've had the immense privilege to be involved with Nuffield Ireland. Prior to the pandemic, I got to travel to the Oxford Farming Conference over in England, followed by the Contemporary Scholars Conference in Brisbane, Australia, where we met lots of excellent people and a lot of forward-thinking scholars there. Following on from after the pandemic came and we all rushed home from Australia, I've had the great privilege and joy to visit farms and business people virtually everywhere from Brazil, the Netherlands, France, Australia, Kenya, just to name a few. On to my topic, exploring the impact our farming decisions have in rural communities. So I hear you asking, why the interest in this topic? And there's a number of reasons I have an interest in this, but just to name a couple. One would be 8 years ago, my time spent in New Zealand, seeing firsthand the impact that the large number of conversions to dairy had on the rural communities, particularly in the South Island. And just as I've thought over it too, I have to thank my dad too for this outlook on life, but just to share an example, when I bought my first car at the age of 18, he said to me, it's a real blessing that you have a car. And he said, don't use this only for your own benefit, but for the benefit of others. So I suppose that thought has stuck with me as I have moved into my farming career. So looking at the objectives that I had, I first of all wanted to study the impact that farming has within rural communities here in Ireland and abroad, to encourage farmers and other agricultural professionals and how they can have a positive impact on their own communities and where they're situated, to share examples from within Ireland and across the world of just farmers and how they've done this in a positive way, to identify case studies of farms and businesses that have both done this successfully and to learn from those where they've failed or where things have gone wrong and where we can pick up warning signs, and then to make recommendations to the relevant industry stakeholders back here in Ireland. So it very quickly became apparent as I set out in my studies that the number one priority, if you want to have any impact positively with those around you, you first must look after yourself, your own family, and your own farm or business. It's a wee bit like, I know it's a while since many of you have been on a plane, but you always hear the air hostess and hosts saying, if you're putting on an oxygen mask and you have a child with you, put on your own first before you put on your child's. It's a bit like that if you want to have a positive impact on those around you. First, look after yourself. I came across case studies where this was not the case. Some sad scenarios where farmers simply hadn't maintained their own health, mental or physical. And the opportunity cost and the sad reality of that was sad to see. And on the flip side of that, some of the best farmers that created good working environments for their staff, created economic viability in their local communities, were the ones that simply wanted to create a better workplace for themselves and wanted to make themselves better off financially too. So looking after yourself, it's all about getting the basics right here. I can't stress that enough. Health and safety on farms, I know it's talked about a lot, but it can't be stressed enough. And I don't throw this away as a flippant comment. 2020 was a sad year in Inishowen, and we know this firsthand from the just neighbours that are no longer with us and the hole that's left in our community. The rest speaks for itself really. Looking after your own farm, if you're financially doing well, others will benefit. I saw that time and time again wherever I visited. The next point that I came across was the influence decisions that we make have, even without, quite often subconsciously, have on other farmers around us, the next generation, and the general public. I saw this in many's a place where there were farmers that were improving what they were doing themselves, and oftentimes other farmers, they could see improvements in their neighbours, even without having said anything to them or shared any information personally. They could see people were watching and making improvements themselves. The next generation, so many people I spoke to shared examples of parents and grandparents and even non-family members that had a massive impact on their farming career, and give a positive and just showed a good way of farming and showed it in a positive light, and this had a massive bearing on the way they went about their lives and their farming. And the general public, again, speaking to different farmers, being things like tidying up the road after cows cross, even things like having a nice set of pillars and gates, well-presented farm. People appreciate it, and I heard that time and time again throughout my study. So there's two key ingredients. Anywhere I saw a positive impact between farmers or business people and those around them, they all shared time and information. Those were two key ingredients that I came across over and over again. One great example of this was this time last year during our virtual Africa GFP in Kenya. Each of the 4 visits there had a great role in CSR, the community and social responsibility, and took it very much to heart. This is a picture of our Zoom with Stuart Barden, 2009 Nuffield Australia scholar. And it's a picture here of him showing he used to farm in Australia, and then following his scholarship in 2009, he moved himself and his wife and I think one of his kids to Kenya to farm there in a pretty dry area, what the Kenyans considered only really good for cattle, but he set out to show that it could be useful for growing crops and particularly protein in that area. So this picture just showed some of the challenges that he faced, but he said that was the same no matter where you would farm. One of his business objectives was the sharing of information, and just to quote from him, I can't do my Australian accent. You can ask some of my fellow scholars maybe to do it later, but you don't know what you don't know, and ain't that the truth? And he maintained that, I can't remember how many thousand smallholder farmer neighbours he had, but he said there was something he could learn from each one of them, and vice versa. He was doing trials of all sorts of different crops that wasn't feasible for his neighbours to do, but because he had the scale, he could do these trials in different crops and different planting rates and management techniques, and he was sharing this information with those around him for their betterment. Sharing the information too, he was great. The number of visitors that he's had in his farm since he was there, ranging from Saudi diplomats right down to a very small holding farmer that maybe has 1 or 2 acres beside him in Kenya. And since our time there with him this time last year, he has set up a YouTube channel and other social media outlets to get that message out further. And getting on to sharing information, I came across the opportunity last month to travel to the US for a wedding, but an opportunity to visit some farms there. And one that stuck out to me was Rosie Lane Holsteins in Wisconsin, run by Lloyd and Daphne Holderman, and their 2 partners, business partners, Tim and Jordan. And this is something Daphne does once a quarter. She makes up this newsletter and she shares it with, she's 40 landlords, they have 10 non-farming neighbours on their boundary, the local business chamber in town, and she puts this newsletter together, just 2 pages back to front and back, and shares a wee bit of information about their newest employee. On the back page is some lovely photos of sunsets and newborn calves and things like that, and I just thought it was a great novel way to create a better relationship with those around them. So my next 2 slides basically are just sharing some examples of ways that farmers can involve members of the local community on their farms, and the next slide will be ways that farmers can share or can be involved in their local communities. These are just a few examples. I can just stress at this time that it'll be different for every farmer, and every farmer can have an impact. Some people have more time to share, some people maybe have more wealth that they could give, and people have different skill sets, but there's something that everyone can do. Students and young people, and I know it's been a great thing in our farm to take on students over the years, and young people, just to mention, one of the best fellows that's ever worked with us was a fellow that started off when he was 7 or 8. He lived across the fence from a wee small 3-acre field that we have, and he used to come out and sit in the tractor with us each time we were ploughing or any work that was going on. And over the years, he's just taken on smaller bits of responsibility, and has been a great asset to us over the years. I've spoken to other farmers, and even young people that haven't stayed in the industry. They shared with me the relationship that they still have with their families, with those individuals, and their schools have been ongoing for the rest of their lives, and a real credit to them. It's not on the slide, but just talking with others too, we shouldn't forget the older generation too. I think there's a great opportunity just to keep farming and non-farming members involved, include in, and even give them small roles within our farms where possible. I think it could mean a lot. Locals and members of staff speaks for itself. The wider rural community, I think, getting involved in discussion groups. I'll mention that in my next slide. And wider society in general. I came across great examples of great examples like open farm weekends, bringing in schools for visits, and all the likes of that. Some other great examples came across. The social farming is prescribing. There's a great scope there for farms here in Ireland. Simple things, information sharing, being part of your discussion group, social media, volunteering in local clubs and societies, opening up the countryside, whether if you've a bit of forest or a bit of an end of a field that people could walk across, it means a lot to the local community. And for some people, it'll be simple, donating time or money to different causes that are going on locally. So on to my recommendations. So starting with the two on the right, the mental health training and health and safety, go back to my point about looking after yourselves. I came across in the UK the Lions Barber Collective that are training up barbers and hairdressers to see the signs of ill mental health, and not only see the signs but to act on them and know how to support. I've been informed of some of this going on in Ireland already, but I think there's a great opportunity for this to be replicated, training up tanker drivers, mail reps, members or people that are coming into contact with farmers on a regular basis. I think there's a great opportunity there. Back to Health and Safety Initiative. I know the HSA and the HSE do great work on this. My suggestion would be to trial a scheme where we would part fund or subsidise some of the cost, or provide people with expertise that could carry out high-risk jobs in farms, working at heights, working dangerous machinery. I think there's a real opportunity to roll that out and see how it goes. Funding, I think I didn't touch on it for very long, but the social care, the care farming, the social prescribing, I think there's a great opportunities there. The tax incentive, I think there's an opportunity potentially down the line where we could some way reduce the cost of employing people in rural areas, which would have a double whammy effect of bringing more people into the rural areas and enhancing them, but also with rent pressure zones in parts of Ireland, taking people away from that. And finally, and maybe most important of all, having a positive outlook. Attitude was one of the biggest key factors in it all. If you want to make an impact, you will, and if you don't, you probably won't. So just finally to say my thank yous. Thank you to all the sponsors, and particularly FBD Trust that give me this opportunity. Also those in Arrivo that have supported me during this time. Thank you to the Nuffield Ireland Board, in particular Karen, who has gone above and beyond in this last 2 years to support us as 2020 scholars. And to John, I feel sorry for the guys following us that won't get the opportunity to see your management style. You're so on the ball and slick, and you do it all with a great sense of humour too. Joe too, enjoyed having you in Tangalooma and all you've supported us with. To my mentor Sean, and the rest of the 2020 group, it's been great, this opportunity together. And then finally to my family, and my mum and dad are here today, and appreciate all they do. To those back at home, my 2 brothers and my uncle and the team there in the farm for giving me the opportunity to get away for so long, only give out a little bit. And then finally to my wife Eleanor, who's been a real support to me this last 2 years, and couldn't have done it without her. So I look forward to any questions that are to follow, and thank you very much.